Very good gamers, how are we? This is Games and Chill, and we are in a new video on what characters are worth climbing and climbing. 90 level? There's one of the most watched videos not only from the channel, but from the Spanish-speaking community. Thank you. Thanks to you who will be here, which is which characters are worth going up to level 90? And you've been asking me, because that video I think has been updated for over a year and a half now, as there are many more characters. 20 or 30 characters, more than at the time. And besides, as you know, I was at the expense of waiting for NATLAN's famous level 100 to be confirmed. Although it has not been confirmed that it will arrive at 5, it has been confirmed that it will arrive along NATLAN, and we are all very anxious. Because this will change the game method, the farm, the resources, and it is said that a new talent will come for each character too. Balance the game a little bit more and it can be interesting. And as always, there will be complaints and controversy over social networks. The fact is, knowing already that this level 100 is not coming at the 5 of NATLAN. Finally, here I bring you which characters are worth ascending or rising to level 90 of all Genshin Impact. I imagine you'll see it many times because you'll go back to the video to review if any character doesn't remember well what to do. I'll try to be synthetic and summarized with the characters so the video doesn't last an hour. And now yes, leave a good like, a good ulti of Bennett. Subscribe to you. Thank you for supporting with all this for free so that the channel has more exposure. Let us keep growing. Thank you for all the support for content in the channel. Thanks to the channel team, and let's go with what characters are worth going up to level 90. This time, it's not going to be like the last time I did it a little random. It's going to be alphabetically, and I'll explain interesting things to you. Especially two very interesting things. Factor number 1, the characters who use life, and this is also going to save you time, and it's good because I'll also go through these characters quickly and explain to you quickly why. Okay, Phil, I understand you, Furina Yelan, because the extra 80-90 life scale is a savage that totally changes you. The character and all the percentage life multipliers that go with the base life also return that stretch from 80 to 90 gigantic. And apart from this, many characters, which is another factor apart, ascend with a certain scaling or probability or damage or with some value. Very interesting for the character. Finally, and this is another important thing that will be repeated in the video, I explain it now, and then repeat it and pass by, is that also many characters, or mainly hyper carries, and above all 5 stars, on which all the damage of the team falls to a single character who receives all the buffos. Ayaka example, that for example, as I will start with the A, Ayaka is up here. It basically happens that climbing from 80 to 90 gives you an amount of base attack that then multiplied by your own attacks. Extra percentages of both the clock and of noble buffos, and then add Bennett and others. Translates into between a 10, a 15, and some characters reaches up to an additional 20% attack. Remembering that many characters have an average of 2,000 of 5 stars like Harris, and this additional multiplier can give you between 100 and 200 extra, and in some cases with more buffos of Bennett and others, you might like more attack, with which this is an explanation that. I'm not going to repeat it and I sum it up now, so then, when we see a lot of characters, I'll tell you it goes up to 90 for this and for this. And finally, I'm going to try to optimize, that means you're watching this video, to save resin with which all the characters that don't. It is strictly necessary to go up to 90 and not change anything, or change very little the topic of going up 80 to 90, or rising those who. I'm going to specify it. I also say, look, it's okay if you go up to 90 or leave it to 80 without going up and this character doesn't change you. That said, leave me the comments which is the character that you first raised in the account if you remember level 90. In the comments, and leave me the comments which character you have loved and changed the account for having raised it to 90. And we start. The first albedo scales its elementary skill damage with the defense, is a good sub DPS, is not the greatest damage by rotation of the Fae. Equipment with which it is not strictly necessary to climb to 90 may be interesting for its extra defense scaling, but with leaving 80 is going to do your job very well, and anyone who wants a bus can go up and up, but it is not strictly necessary. Al-Haytham is the next character. Al-Haytham is a hypercar, and also, but all the damage of the team does not fall on Al-Haytham because that the attack and punctually Al-Haytham also has mixed scales with the mastery that benefit further the mastery with which the Genshin climbing from 80 to 90 earns bonus damage inside, doesn't gain mastery, and only gains more base attack with which it would be wise, and even if it seems amazing Al-Haytham, leave it at 80-80 or 80-90, promoted by bonus damage inside but not raise it to 90 with Al-Haytham, you can save yourself all of the books and all the resources. Even though I think you all have it at 90, I also know that I will save many characters that don't. It's worth it. And you'll tell me, Phil, I've already got it to the next 90 alloy character. Don't raise it or go up to it, and alloy is good already. You know, don't go up alloy, don't poop up amber. Well, I don't know if you've seen Amber's video where I make a look of 250. 1,000 in the whole story. But the reality is Amber isn't worth raising to 90. Amber either is a sub-DPS, maybe some team from Utah that can carry Elegia Dolphin and Nobility in order to glue Pyro to put the Barombani there to explode, and to be able to put Shade Green to Pyro and such. But Amber has no dedicated team, has a team made for her to make these blows so big, but Amber isn't worth it to this day, not even raising the milestone. Milestone happens to him. Something similar to the closed, but if it is a carry that when climbing from level is going to gain much more defense and attack naturally, its scaling is in critical probability as it ascends from 80 to 90 with which at least must be promoted. But now Taquito, if it meets the requirements of carry that we have explained at the beginning, wins a lot of defense and a lot of attack from 80 to 90 base, and also Milestone is one of the few characters that takes advantage of both the defense and the milestone attack. Is the first character that, if you like, and is a mandatory milestone team level 90 Alekino, mandatory level 90 by base attack. And besides Alekino, the same of the hypercarries factor, the ascension is also with critical probability. If I remember correctly, Alekino is to probability or damage of both, but equal is very powerful, is practically equal, and is always a similar proportion of probability. And damage is to say no higher priority is to be of probability of damage as long as it is probability years the best scaling of a character. And Alekino to more attack, more damage from normal attack by his Bloody Denode Pact. So Alekino level 90 totally indisputable. Bayuju is a support that if you could reach level 80, a lot of life, enough for his passive that is 50, I would tell you that Bayuju. You can stay at 80 promoted to 90, but it's complicated because you scale with percentage life. That means you have to promote it. And I don't think anyone has achieved 50,000 lives without taking Baiju to level 90, with which I would tell you that Baiju in less priority than the Cardis would have to raise it to 90. But here I leave you the disclaimer, and is that if with level 80 and something without spending books and wanting to save resources, getting to level 50 to 50,000 of life with Baiju is enough. Barbara has overheating and Barbara has no type. The need to ascend to the 90 Barbarous one does not even need to ascend from 80 to 90. But it is that I would tell you to Barbar even with level 70, with the talents, everything that allows you to climb with prototype love to cure more, or with sacrifice to reset your elemental, and always have full elemental and sufficient life, taking triple life or double life with helmet of heating bonus, has overheating you. He's going to cure everything you need, and Barbarian level 70 does his job, and no more Baiju. Next character Baiju doesn't do. Still need to climb to the 90 Baiju is the case of the 4 sub-DPS stars like Jiangling and others. Baiju basically with level 80, and if you tend them up with bonus electro damage to 90 because you win a little more damage, but in no case is the maximum damage per rotation. Of no team is more a sub DPS, with which Baiju 80 enough. Bennett is the buffer par excellence and healer more than more. Level climbs up to level 90, you'll be able to have more base attack for the entire team, not just one character to the whole team normally. When they snapshot the characters of the team, and apart from more life, it will heal, even though Bennett already with the 90 level life without substat life and without any life items already cures you enough. So Bennett, if it is one of the mandatory at level 90 100% Kandas, if you want to take Kanda's Oasis and burst with the carry team, if you need to reach level 90 by the scaled base attack by the climbing life by scale of everything to be carry, but if it's going to be a buffer of normal attacks like her Bufa, the normals in proportion to his life, perhaps it would be necessary to raise it. The reality is that no one plays it. then in the case of playing it, go up to 90 therefore. Support like carry is necessary, but if you are not going to play it, because on the day of not playing it, no one is not a staff that is not worth getting on. Charlotte to more attack, more cure, but there is one point where she also has overhealing as Barbarous, i.e. Charlotte, is a character that it is not strictly necessary to climb to the 90 scale with percentage attack and with leaving to 80-80, and if you lack healing 80-90 for extra percentage attack scaling and raising the talents to cure more is enough, but Charlotte may be at 80. Perfectly Chevreuse, more of the same. She really needs more life to heal with her elementary skill, but in many cases you exceed 40,000 of life because your passive caps at 40,000, because with 40,000 of life, Boofa 40% attack the team. So easily many people have it with 44 with 50,000 alive, and there's a gun that came out of event that's perfect for her and gives her life. Then Chevreuse needs to go up to 90. Really doesn't need to go up to 90 if you want me to cure more with his elemental. But cures quite little in fact. Cures as well as less than Kuki and Chevreuse with level 80 without even extending if you get that. It cures enough to have another additional heating source that is not just Chevreuse already gives you enough sustain to 80 and does your job. Chiori is a sub DPS like Albedo. What happens is that she has less utility as her support because Albedo Then battery to the equipment, the flower can place it whenever you want, it has better adaptation ability, elemental, and others, and yet Chiori is more focused on its mixed scale sub DPS Chiori with attack and defense as a milestone, and also by raising it to level 90 wins that attack base and defense that benefits you and greatly multiplies the damage, with which, if you now differ from Albedo, I think it is very important. Go up to 90 because if you won't lose enough damage, but if right now not many people Shang Yun play in reverse melts. You know a little Shang Yun doesn't need to go up to 90 with level 80-80 without climbing. It's enough to climb the scale with attack percent, with which it doesn't change much either, because sometimes you get a boring attack percent. Shang Yun 80 is more than enough. If you play it in reverse melts or some strange equipment, Chlorine same criterion of hyper, carry same criterion of giving keynote to more, attack gives you a bonus of damage in normal attacks, with which it is almost mandatory to raise it to 90. Because it is responsible for the damage. Kolai 80-80 team does not need anything else, is a support that will apply inside, and that on some teams even at level 70 if you play Bloom that your damage doesn't matter is enough, so Kolai nothing. 80-80 does not need anything more. Sino criterion hyper carry with scaling. Both scale with critical damage and base attack, as well as all the passive ones that it has related to mastery as above all. Sino is very mandatory because all the Hyperbloom damage as well as the whirlwinds scale with the character's level, plus his mastery. So if the characters that do Hyperbloom like then we get to Kuki are either 90 or 85, do more damage to 90 than 85, and Sino half of his damage is Hyperbloom, that he generates, with which, if it is not mandatory to go up to 90 not only by the criteria. Mixed climbs of life and attack. If you want to take her from carry and take her to heaven, then she would have to be at 90. And if you're going to take her to crack a support outside the same criterion field, also with which with the hyperlooms of already was more damage than Repeatia. He's at 90, that's at 85 also considering his master's degree, so from now on, even though he doesn't play much 90 Deluxe, his best team currently are both vaporized and melted downs with, if in Junie, Bennett then Diluc to maximize your scaled as hyper carry. Of team-ups level 90 criteria of the carries, although Diluc is less played and less important between quotation marks than other carries. So you can choose other carries first, then Diluc. We follow Diona. Diona in the end is a cryo healer that is below Charlotte. Today, Diona works alive to heal more. And to have better, Diona's shield has what happens to many healer from the beginning of the game, and is that it does its work to spare without having to invest in life, or it heals well without investing in life, and has a very good shield without investing in life, in addition to the sacrifice that can allow you to regenerate the shield with which you need to go up to 90, is not good sub DPS between quotation marks on some teams where not even the Morgana of 3 years ago, and others while at scratch of probability or damage was quite decent worth having up to 90, considering that Charlotte is already better than she's like a cryo healer, and you don't have to go up Charlotte any further than 90. I'd say Dion to 80-80 already does the least. That's because the part of me your porte Dory do not upload it, but if you want to play a team of Dory Hyperbloom, then it is up to 90 by the climb of the Hyperbloom. And the triple mastery don't go up to Dory Emily, that will come new Emily. I say that being a sub DPS with scaled so high, I think it will deserve You don't have mastery then. Maybe it was going to be worth at least raising it 80 to 90 to take it very seriously because she's going to climb. I think with critical damage or probability is to say a stat of the powerful, and then he has a high base attack and he will use the attack. The proportion and the recharge with which perhaps Emily is one of the few sub-DPS that will be worth going up to 90 but 80-90. Ascended. What is worth at least an Emily Eula hyper carry criterion for everything that does level 90 Faruzan has good damage. Like sub-DPS, but really, she what does her cheeks porting etc. Dedicated support everything that does with Favonius, plus the Geo Hamada. Plus the bonuses can have them from 80 up to 90, because that will allow you to also raise the talents to maximize. If you don't have Faruzan resources, you can give 80-80 and nothing would happen and do your job well. But if you want to optimize it, no need to climb to 90-80, ascended to 90 Fischl is a sub-DPS like Bayadu that does not have full responsibility for the damage in. She simply accompanies and has a very high damage has scaled attack with the extra strokes of the Sikhs and with the extra blows of each elemental electro reaction that becomes more its elemental than its main source of damage, and its base attack escalation by being 4 stars is more or less and scale with percentage attack. Then Fischl would work at 80-80, worry us more if you have them. You win an extra percentage attack, and if you see them at 90, you win a lot more attack to take her to heaven, and the truth is that it does quite a lot. But Fischl being a sub-DPS, not having liability for damage, etc. 80-80 enough Freminate carry 4 stars would not recommend. Raising it is usually worse than Eula if it does not have this 6 and over-invested to Freminate, but by the criterion of the carry then perhaps. If you like Freminate wants to take him to heaven level 90, but would be a character that would say it is not worth raising Furina criterion of I. Life scaling mainly to then the loads and damage inflicted and everything else, level 90 by life scaling criteria. Hyper carry being the best 4-star carry of the game level, 90, indisputably due to the scaling of the reactions of the rare. Attack everything you can do, Ganyu. Scale with critical damage, so at least 80 extended to 90 if you're going to play it sub. DPS that today's your best in slot bristly teams Permafrost Ganyu. Sub DPS of Brisley Permafrost could be at 80, extended to 90 without going up to 90. If you want to increase the damage from 80 to 90 a little more, you could raise it. And if you play Ganyu carry. Investments or whatever you want to do as the main carrier of the team, then you would have to climb to 90 for the responsibility of the next team. Guru same criterion as Faruzan. If you have the C4 of Guru, that cures the team in proportion to its defense. And as the last slot of the milestone team, you have official a Raiden or something that in general, you don't need to map Guru to 92. Maximize its defense and bring it triple defense, so that the C4 heals enough for the defensive sustain plus all shields of Thea. If there's no corrosion, it's enough. But if you're wearing an extra heater like for example, I don't know about me or something, or if it's cool. Not something triple geos, or you wear a jongli that makes you immortal by the shield, and there's no corrosion with which you don't care. Guru Curio, don't cure. Then Guru can stay 80-80 without rising to 90. Then the theme is to climb Guru to 90 only depends. If you're C4 that cures or you need it if it doesn't work, you don't need it because you're wearing a heater and you're going a jongli, and you're immortal then. Guru 80-80 sufficient as Faruzan Yutao criterion of carrying and criterion of life scaling combined is indispensable to go up to. Yutao to 90 Jin with level 80-80 without ascending as Barbara or less still already has overheating works with attack and Jinsei. Plays in a combination of teams called Jin San Fire where you play Jin with Bennett that Bennett gives a Jin and Jin Bufo with the Bufo attack of Bennett cures even more. And is a savage, but the summary of Jin without Bennett is even that. At 80-80 or less 75 or 70 without ascending to 80 or anything weird already has overheating already throws the ulti, and cures you already throws the ulti, and activates almost all the loads of Furina already leaves you the ulti in field that cures you many ticks and very fast to activate many loads of Furina Jin to 70 as Barbarous, and does all the work. I'll talk about some character NATLAN doesn't know in the end it's like a Kirara then I guess you don't need to upload it. Katsuha, if you are going to play it, purely support his contribution from the team comes from the Green Shadow, and the Master's Bufo, that also mastery. With 1,000 Master's Degree can give you 40% elemental damage to the elements you've made Whirlwind then, if you raise it up to 90, and the people love Katsuha. And sure, you have it at 90 is to do more whirlwind damage, or if already in the future with Xephos that you covers the recharge you get probability so that its climbs that are very high do much damage apart from the whirlwinds with 1,000. But if not the case of a Kazuha Hyper, late that is a very, very, very exclusive building, and not everyone builds it like this. People take him to triple mastery, a lot of recharge, and Grandma Kazuha, you can have him to 80 promoted to 90 without going up to 90 because at 80 promoted to 90, you win the last stage of Master's Climbing, that is the natural Kazuha climbing. And then you already have the maximum elemental damage bonus to the team, then Kazuha, 80 promoted to 90, no need to climb to 90 in most players. Kaya criterion of the 4 stars, criterion of inverse withdrawals, criterion of sub-DPS that does not have all the damage on your shoulders as well. That 80-80 enough Ayaka that I have explained before in example there is here is the criterion of hyper carries is a character that receives all. So, from the ascent of 80 to 90 wins critical damage, and from 80 to 90 having already. There's here the 90 wins more base attack, which translates to an additional 10-15% damage when she's the main carry with it. 90 Ayato happens to him something similar to Tartaglia, and is that he is the carrion field of the team but is not the character that. More makes the team is Xianglin and Ayato Vape, and in the Hyper Bloom teams also because Ayato Tartaglia in field passing Hydro. For the rest of the team to make reactions mainly there is per boom as I tell you it is not the one who does harm with which Ayato, and we advance to Tartaglia when it arrives it can be 80-80 or at least 80 ascended to 90 without reaching 90 because basically it does not depend. All the damage the scale of 80-90 is because Ayato as he climbs the scale level with critical damage, but you can leave 80-80 and his work. Ayato does it perfectly. Kaba is a carry of Bloom. And as I told you with the Hyper Loom, the Bloom works the same if you are going to activate it with the elemental force to explode the blooms, and as when you play with Nahida, he generates more blooms than Nahida, applying his level and his mastery, 2 of the only numbers Genshin uses to calculate the damage of blood Hyper reaction. Loom and then remove the overload from the whirlwinds, the superconductors, and some more reaction that is forgetting me can fit if you're going to. Playing as a team and you don't need to be at 90 with triple master's degree. And if you necessarily need the level 90 Kiching criteria of Hyper carries, but Kiching to this day is already played less as a character, perhaps worth less to go up, but Kiching criterion of Hyper carries and like Tignari and or Alhaitham with what is explained of Alhaitham mixed climbing Quidditch has not yet come out with it. Which I think at least 80 extended to 90 because scale with critical probability if I don't remember bad with critical damage if it would be minimum, and you would have to see how much additional damage you need from climbing because in principle you will not play. Aggravated Spirit will be played. Who matures and wants to whistle and maybe combines with Veneer that he had an attack beautiful like this. Maybe it is to have 90 for the base attack deserves. So my prediction is perhaps worth extending it and raising it to 90 because it's a Hyper Karis and much more than nil. Alhaitham, but you don't know yet. Quirara is going to be a case similar to the Islay. And some characters more like that, and it's that as she ascends. And going up to 90 you'll make a lot more life, and this life you need because you literally want to be a character that today. Some kind of carries inside without harming, just putting inside for bloom equipment for teams there. But with a Furina that is passively passing but will really want to, if we consider his shield, if you get his shield to hold you at level 80 because you can. Have the 80-80, but if you need much more shield and you have no way that shield improves because you already take it triple life and everything. The rest because it would have to be considered to raise it to 90 for the shield, but being 4 stars and not so used would say better to leave. The 80 Klee criterion of Hyper carry in its best teams with Klee C2 Furina, C2 Kazuha, CT2 and Bennett 6, where in that team bursts and gets into the tops maybe 12-13 teams of the game. A saved Klee criterion of carry Sarah is like Bennett, and to more base attacky. More Raiden buffa with which, if you want the extra attack so that he buffets Raiden, it would be worth raising it to 90 as opposed to Faruzani. Unlike Goru and unlike other dedicated Sarah supports, it is worth raising to 90 by the base attack Bufo to Raiden. I think you know it. I've already explained it. Hyperloom scaling has 2 values that are the pick. Mastery and the level of the character that provokes it, so Cookie is required to raise it to 90 100% Cookie. You need it to 90 the end of the undead while. The same criterion that I wanted is only a shield that needs life is a 4 stars that if you manage to leave it 80-80. And that, the shield holds you up is the optimal point if you don't get it, because you have to raise it to 90 by the additional shield that will want smooth. Smooth if you play at the Hyperloom, that you have many interesting teams of smooth with Hyperloom criteria of cookie. You have to upload it to 90 if you want to play it as sub-DPS. Inside that is Electro by its constellation to lower the defense of the enemies because same criterion. You can leave 80-80 or it doesn't even hurt the truth, so maybe it's even smooth that you already have it up to 74. The latest Ascension talent and basically leaving the field for defense reduction and Electro to make superconductors. Or Electro charged maybe smooth as Barbarous and his Gene up to level 70-75 and it doesn't need to go up more if it's like Electro DPS if it's like. There is problem you have to climb to 90 Linnet. Linnet is an Anemos character support that applies green shadow independently the level and that buffet the attack of the team, and that besides generates an amount of unhealthy energy because it can carry Favonius and a C4, gives you 2 elementals. And the elemental generates many particles, so Linnet has no synergies with the whirlwind or such a high damage with it. Which Linnet 80, at least 80, but even if you wanted to do its function minimally bubbling the attack of the green shadow, and to be battery. Even with the 70 level up to 80 for your second ascent breath, no longer needed is a sub-DPS that can do a lot. Increased damage Anemo. An Anemo monkey with Faruzan Sheikh's Linnet can be played to level 70 up to 80 to unlock a talent. And you do not need to go up to 80, or go up to 90, or go up to 90 Linnet. You do all your work to 70-75 Linnet criterion of Pupa Carry team has to upload it to 90 Micah. Micah is a Micah battery you can play 80-80 in Eula teams because that's what unique that makes like the rest of dedicated Micah supports, when climbing scale level also with more life Italia, more life cures normally. Has the ability to cure you the full team so Micah doesn't need to raise it more than 80-80 if you have Micah healing deficits. Because you already raise it to 90, but Micah 80-80 does all its work, and depends on nothing from the 80 to the 90 next Mona Day of Nick. Today its main role is in Prime Frost that cannot be used, and is no longer the best in slot because the best cousin Frost is Furina Xianyang, Shenhe Ayaka but cute. A second best cousin Frost with the traditional Frost cousin that many will remember of Ayaka Mona Kazuhakanye. Its role today is only to carry the hunting of dragons or perhaps Monkey Amber to sustain defensive with thirst for nobility. It's Nuke of Thera. Ulti doesn't do anything in Prima Frost because it doesn't react, and its Bufo really is the damage bonus inflicted on enemies when they are affected by that constellation that appears to them by the ulti of Mona, which means that to this day already Mona 80-80 enough. Disclaimer: you follow 3 of these show keys where cute makes a million some character there. If you can raise her to 90 because you are so looking for a quick TikTok, you are looking for a nice video, but if not today, the only real role of Monkey with level 80-80. Enough because his second best role is the one explained by Raiden. And per carry when he doesn't have that 6, so put Monkey in. The role of Sarah, and that she is a cute dragon hunter who plays a very similar role to Sarah. And you play Bennett Kazuha, Mona Raiden. And then Mona at 80-80 does the same thing because she's going to apply you the dragon hunter, and the same omen of Monkey, that's this boof damage inflicted. And Raiden does his work. Moadani will be indispensable to go up to 90-100%. Because he's a hyper carry like I said as a Gamine but without descendings. And vaporizes with which Moadani 90-90 Nahida. This is very interesting. Nahida is more polished, is one of the 3 most important characters. From Genshin Impact as well, Nahida does not miss going up to 90. Nahida would only recommend 80 to 90, ascended because it gives you more mastery. Like Kazuha, but you can leave it at level 80 amounted to 90 without spending all the books until 90 Nahida with 80 ascended. 90 is more than enough. Enna had hyper carry criterion that receives all the bufos from the team to maximize its damage, and has many. Zinagis with the attack Nay had level 90 new billet criterion hyper carry life scaling criterion. It is mandatory to go up to 90 new. Be they neither the more life nor the more damage the Nilu teams are all bloom. Nor it is mandatory to raise it to 90 to maximize the Damaga to their Nangwang teams is a carry that is not played, neither carry nor sub DPS in fact. Nangwang is not played today already there. Very few survivors me and Ningwang so well if you play it. His carry I recommend to raise it to 90 but generally recommend. No, the resemblance Ningwang, just that he doesn't have a pretty powerful team plus he doesn't improve NA there, nor Hato, but he has it. Furina level, and 2 more Geos that can be Guru, Yunjin Albedo, Kyori Albedo, Goru, Albedo Hyunjin. All these combinations simply 3 Geos with Noel and a Furina and Noel as they have, and use both the defense and the attack of the 80 to 90 stretch. Win defense and attack. Baza Noel, if it is worth going up to 90, who plays it Kiki, same criterion of Jin, has overheating scale and cure with attack level. 75 with a lot of attack or triple attack already cures a very savage Kiki. You don't even need to take it to 80 with 70-75 ascended. At least that's for the second Kiki ascend encouragement already enough, 75, and we're almost finishing half an hour video. It hasn't been an hour but short because luckily I'll explain these criteria. We can speed up Raiden Shogun's criterion hyper carry. Revent is a savage would tell you one thing, and is that if your Raiden is Chero, and you want to play him a Raiden national, Raiden could go 80 with Favonius, because it is not the main source of damage. The main source of damage is Xiangling, but once your Raiden is Cone CT2 and you want to play it in Raiden National Hyper, carry maximize damage. Apart from this is an Archant. I know nobody has it to 80, but it's a tip that could be applied in Raiden because outside of the situation that I just explained to you, Raiden would go 90-90 criterion, hyper carry. But I already say Raiden National Raiden Chero can go to 80-80, and you save resources. Razor today's Razoradaha pick is a Razor Thunder Furry. What other videos explain is of Zajef of the English-speaking community is a very interesting surprise team where makes more Hyperlum crackle with Nahida Bennett chicks than Pyro imbues it. And without that in this team criterion of Hyperlum and Crepitar needs level 90 as well as Kuki to maximize damage when exploiting Hyperlum cracking with Electro from its ulti and Pyro Bling controller. Bido with Bennett or Rosaria criteria sub DPS is that they have no responsibility for the damage of the equipment, i.e. sub DPS is 4 stars. Without responsibility, Team Rosaria 80-80 does all the work more than enough. Kokomi life scaling criteria. Besides that, Kokomi's Gillen always felt poor the truth then. Kokomi needs level 90-90 to maximize his life and his passives and the healing Zayu criterion of Jean and criterion of 4 stars 80-80 already cures you enough, and no more hedges need is a carry. 4 stars that makes the function of Chlorine Sino with much synergy with the mastery. That is to say, more like Sino 4 stars. That a Chlorine 4 stars shares the same team's Furina Nahida Baiju, which is an ultra mega super powerful Korea today, but the bottom line is that it's worth being 4 stars. It's not much worth raising any carry like Raiden Sino or Chlorine deserves. Much more, and it's not worth going up, but if you go up and you want to play at 90-90 for being carry, Shenji is a sub DPS that what it does is do far. But it gets to a point with Cone or C2 that if you build it correctly, not with attack as wrongly repeated in the community without. Even try it because not everyone gave so much faith to the cousin, and then started climbing scale plane to play. Now that they've loaded it again on Fontaine, Shenji is a sub DPS that goes with critical ratio and with damage and not attack stat. Triple attack because the charges are useless and only gives you 5 faces per character, so you want to carry triple attack too. Waste them and does not give you an abysmal damage that compensates for the damage itself that Shenji could do with his own burdens, not even without Cone and having 12 loads 5 plus 7. I will explain the will, but the case is that Shenji as sub-DPS of Ayaka in their best teams the damage, which may have Shenji and more combined with Furina C2 if you have. It is abysmal with which Shenji as sub-DPS did not know. Ayaka's damage in rotation of course, but it is worth raising it to level 90, both for its scaled attack, not so much. For Sino loads by gross damage as by multipliers as sub-DPS is an amazing sub-DPS damage that has Shenji no. Makes sense outside the field. Haizao carry 4 stars criteria. 4 stars. I do not recommend raising it, but if you raise it level 90 because it is a carry Shishuaim Kokomi criterion, you need level 90 to maximize life cures. Quite decent, but to more cures, more loads of Furina is made to combine with Furina, and to more life, more damage in the additional loads of damage in your elementary ability, that is. The other passive weird Shishuaim, so if you want to play Shishuaim, you need to go up to 90. Zakarosa has a criterion of the whirlwinds of level 90, but it really happens to Kazuha. Its main damage is not the whirlwind. It is the green shadow is the master's bonus that will give the team that does not depend on raising it to 90, and is the energy that generates because with it. Sacrifice the first rotation you have 3 elementals, and from the second you have 2 elementals per rotation, which is very interesting. Anyway then, Sakarosa with 80-80 is more than enough. Because if you have them from 80 to 90, you only earn bonus damage and Nemo does not gain mastery. Like Kazuhazo Sakarosa could even be played if you don't look for slipstream damage. You could play at level 75 minus on the Sakarosa. Taza, where whirlwind damages Sakarosa and its mastery, if it is very important, because it will reapply elements to play that team of electrocards that a Sakarosa Taser with Sync, Baidu, Sakarosa and Fischl are all 4 stars besides. And you need that damage of whirlwind with which in Sakarosa Taser concretely where Sakarosa is in field is a kind of carrier and Nemo replicator of our whirlwinds and elements in that case. If you go to level 90 triple mastery to maximize whirlwind damage and electro-charged reaction. Also, but in the rest of cases with Sakarosa, that is 90% of the cases, Sakarosa level 75, you have left the contribution of Sakarosa does not make. Tartaglia to raise criterion of Ayato, the when climbing from 80 to 90 does not win year critical, as Ayato wins only an elementary year that equal. Not bad for its damage Hydro, but in Tartaglia really teams with Xianlin. Its ulti evaporates quite with Tartaglia, unlike. But really 80-80 would do well his job then already if you want to take him to heaven then level 90. But it is not the responsible carry. Kirara and Layla. If you want it to be a good shield, that is to say if it is not cracking, and it is only a shield 80-80, and if you lack more shield because... And for only shield without cracking 80-80 Tignari Geism like criterion, only that Tignari has different scales with mastery. But then he has a talent that transforms mastery into damage that loaded with which Tignari criterion of Geism would be 80 promoted to 90 for the bonus damage inside additional, but specifically it doesn't take so much, and it's so much additional damage to raise it to 90. But I think that since it is a carry everything you have to 90, the Travelers would tell you that the Traveler inside then 80-80 because it is the only one that uses 80-88. And it's a sub DPS without going up to 90-20 a day, I'd say 80-80 or even 70 promoted by the second talent of Ascension. And it's the 20th day of a much more Escaramouche port criterion of Hyper, carry all year long is held responsible on Escaramouche the Bufos. Of Lighthouses and the Bufos of Enid the Bufos of your 4th character, who can be Jalen, can be Furina, can be R-Red, can be what? So it is that Skirmish criterion, Hyper carry 90-90. Nailed Brizzly criterion, Hyper carry just as there is here also in recent years. Inversus equal criterion of Hyper carry 90-90 Grizzly Xiangling here in other videos. Other creators and I have commented that Xiangqing Ling did not need to go up to 90 and leave it 80-80 and towards his work. This is true, is very powerful to be 4 stars, but 2. Difference from the rest of the 4-star Xiangling sub DPS does have responsibility for the damage of the equipment thing that the rest of the sub DPS of 4 stars with which I would tell you day, the criterion will change. And Xiangling is a character that is required to climb. At 90 and crown, his ulti, which is his main source of damage, Xiangling is a horseman of the apocalypse. And it is obligatory to ascend and climb it up to the 90 by the master's scale that you have as you ascend it, by the extra base attack, and by the fact that you can raise your talent to crown it when you have it amounted to 90, so Xiangling at least ascended to 90, but would recommend raising it to level 90 by, to be a 4-star who does have all the damage of the team, especially in International, Nationals, and Raiden National, and in the most teams where you play Xiangling Bufa the downs and provides your attack with which if you are going to play teams where you do not buff descending examples, Xiangling with New Allied Xiangling with Arlecchino, which does not make descending, but Arlecchino Furina. Yelan Xiangling is his second best team after Arlecchino Furina Kazuha Bennett, so you don't need to raise her to 90 because your attack doesn't buff her down with 80-80, you have overhealing. And does all Xiangling, but on the teams of downs you many will play. Downs for example, teams of Xiao's teams like climbing it and raising it to 90 you win more attack and more attack. Bufa the downhills is mandatory in downhills to climb to 90 in teams where you do not make downhills as Permafrost and Ayaka apart. You don't have to go up to 90 with 80-80. Does very well your job and we're going to finish practically so before you finish leaving A. Good like to video exploited. Who has seen almost everything is at this point leave in comments. NATLAN will be the best region. About Genshin putting him exploit the comments. And if you saw a comment like that, give him a like to know that you have been here and with it. This last page we finished Xiao is a hyper carry criterion of liability for damage needs to be at level 90, Xin Q, Jin Q mainly. Has a very powerful defensive input. as a hydro application the strongest of the game off the field, and then is a good sub DPS, but of course half a year ago, Yellen in optimal condition and 1/3 of Furin damage in optimal condition, with which without that, if it is a character that at 80/80 it will do its function well in all the teams who want more because... I don't recommend raising it in general. I don't recommend raising it, but whoever wants to take it to heaven to do good harm for nuclear and all its history, but fucking don't climb it anymore in Miko already. And Miko has 2 teams, mainly the teams of aggravation. Poor good 3 equipments of aggravation. Pure the equipments of aggravation, more hyperlumen, and those of overload in all cases the damage. Gross is already very high and is a sub DPS with itself that has a lot of responsibility, and in some cases all the responsibility for the damage with aim, which is worth the 90 criterion for hypercar and liability for damage, but additional overload and hyper equipment. Lumen the level for the hyperlumen is mandatory, and for overload also, with which already, and Miko is a character, and even if it is a sub DPS, if it is the responsibility of the team, as if Anglin and additional, needs the level 90 for the hyperlumen and the overloads that... But carry criterion is to say as Haisan Huo and as Freminet and these carries, I do not recommend to upload it already existing today, Yutao Gaming Alekino. But for those who uploaded 90/90 already or 80/80 of its function, has overheating and makes everything perfect, so 80 enough and the criterion of sub DPS as Xianglin and Yae, because it has an abyss damage outside the field and criterion. Life scaling and the needs that life with which and the 90/90 Yoimiya criterion of carry, but criterion that I do not recommend. Because there are Lechino Jutao and gaming mainly, but there's also Liney and an infinity of things, but Yoimiya level 90. 90 criteria per carry Yunjin criteria 1990, because the only thing that does in life Yunjin is buffering normal attacks to more defense with L, which the defense escalates from 80 to 90 and more now than in throwing a spear that will give you defense of the forge. More free a new Yun if you really want to use it, although it is not recommended. And there is no team best in slot, Yunjin you need. That is 90 for maximum defense for maximum normal Bufo attack. And finally Zhongli is an incredible Zhongli shield. I'd say he has the same criterion as Barbarous, and that Jin Zhongli at level 80/80 with triple life already gives you a shield that you won't play, but it's an Arcante and a lot of people aside because say I want more shield and more mini life and we'll raise it to 80, but Zhongli 80/80. It's more than enough who wants more, because when you go up to 90, no one has it to 80. It's really advice, but it's the most ignored advice. The video to the end, little more leave a good, like a good old Eye of Bennett. Subscribe, thanks for the support to the channel. Remember that you do not costs nothing, that is free, and that helps a lot to the video exposure, so running to leave like and leave there a good comment.